Zoro's dream is to become Mr. Sword. To make that happen, he's gotta go toe-to-toe with the world's strongest swordsman, who is none other than Shanks. Just kidding, we all know that the true godfather of swords is none other than Mihawk. Shanks isn't really a swordsman, wink wink. To turn his dream into reality, Zoro must face tougher and tougher opponents, which leads to the most epic scenes, but also he has to taste defeat now and then. And that's what we are talking about today. How many times and against whom has our bro already gotten his ass kicked? Spoiler alert, Sanji ain't on the list. That's like asking Vegeta when was the last time he defeated Goku. Zoro's first defeat. Or should I say, his first 2001 defeats. But who handed all these L's to our Green Ronin? Goku? Saitama? No, it was Kuina, his dojo master Koshiro's daughter. She's the one Zoro promised to become the world's best swordsman, and she's the one who kept schooling him in duels. Reminds me of Sasuke, who always gets trashed by his big bro Itachi. Only that Kuina didn't go on to wipe out her clan. Now, the sad part. Kuina is dead. And who's the culprit? Not Blackbeard, not Sakatsuki, but fall these stairs. However, let's not forget that there is a speculation in the community that this fall may actually be a euphemism for suicide. To phrase it in such a way that kids don't even think that she killed herself just because she's a woman and thus physically can't keep up later with men anymore was the right decision, I think. If that's even the case, because nothing has come from Oda yet. But way better than all those 4-kid censorships like turning Sanji's cigarette into a lollipop, right? Anyway, Zoro won against everyone else in the dojo, just not against Kuina. Whether with training swords or real ones, Zoro had no chance against Kuina. Sure, she was older than Zoro, but he could always beat adults too. Those 2001 losses hit hard, especially since he will never get a chance to make it 2001 to 1.
約束を果たすために
貴様がゾロ 何の用だ俺の首でも取りに来たのか
The captain gets tricked and ends up behind bars, a sight that Luffy strangely keeps encountering on his journey. I mean, Alabasta, Impel Down, Pankazard, Whole Cake Island and Wano Kuni. He's got more get out of jail cards than Krillin got Dragon Ball revives. Nami couldn't blow Luffy up, which was Zoro's cue to get them out of there.
怪我は
If only he didn't underestimate his opponents. Given that devil fruit powers are extremely rare in the East Blue, not just the guards in Impel Down were surprised, but Zoro too. I mean, yeah, he kinda knew, but he got way too cocky after slicing through Buggy like a hot knife through butter. But clowns always have a trick up their sleeves. Buggy used his chop powers to lull Zoro into a false sense of security, then caught him off guard from behind, which not only shattered his hope for this fight, but also led to further complications. But fine with me, since that injury gave us 2 epic moments. First, carrying that steel cage with Luffy inside like it's his daily workout routine. And then his fight against Kabaji, the broke-ass guy who can't even afford a set of wheels. Kabaji kept going for Zoro's injury, but Zoro was like, watch this, and sliced open his own wound like a total boss.
バカめてめえの三刀流は俺様には効かねえんだよこら人の話聞け何を目指す最強
But that little scratch from Buggy is nothing compared to the one he got from Mihawk. Zoro was always on the hunt for the ultimate swordsman, but he never thought he would face off with the guy so soon, especially not in the East Blue, the weakest of all seas. Going up against Mihawk so early is like trying to snag a Mewtwo with a basic Pokeball. Ambitious, but dumb. but getting absolutely wrecked by a fucking toothpick? That's the ultimate slap in the face. At least Mihawk realized that Zoro got some cojones and took out his big blade to serve Zoro a respectable defeat. And a scar across his chest that will give him some issues down the line, but will also remind him of his new promise to Luffy that he will never lose a fight again. Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
この剣を越えてみよう。この俺を越えてみよう。ロロノアゾロ。
その言葉は二度と口にするなと言っていたはずだぜ。瀕死のゾロよ。
And it's precisely this wound that sets him up for the next L. Not in a swords fight though, he still turned Hachi into takoyaki. It was against the big boss, Arlong. Still, this arc was full of epic Zoro moments. He felt like a head chef among the fishmen and basically turned them into sushi, which shook Arlong to his core. During the fight with Hachi, he was short on time because the wound kept making him falter. So he borrowed his bro's swords and wrapped it up quick, although the wound had already reopened by that point. So far, so good. Except Luffy was still underwater. While Sanji is off rescuing Luffy, Zoro's gotta keep Arlong busy. Being nearly dead, he couldn't do much against Arlong, except impress the hell out of Arlong, making even Arlong deeply respect him and be rendered speechless. And if you can do that, you're doing something right. Arlong was not only puzzled why Zoro wasn't dead yet, but how he could still stand and throw him that killer look. Arlong saw him as such a big threat that he wanted him dead for sure. But Luffy jumps in the last second to take the heat of Zoro, so it ends up being a close call instead of a one-way ticket to the Soul Society.
言っただろ。このゲームは俺たちの勝ちだ。女だぞ。
見ればわかる。
Zoro did his job to take down the swordsman here too, but the self-proclaimed god was just too much for him. And for everyone else too, except Luffy, who is immune to the lightning. There were 6 survivors left in Eneru's free-for-all when 4 of them decided to take down Eneru and fulfill his prophecy. Gunfall tries first, but gets a shock treatment right away, getting crispy with 30 million volts. Down to 5. Eneru had a problem with Robin, so he zapped her too, which didn't sit well with Zoro. He's up next together with Viper. But Zoro didn't have Haki or a Sea Stone sword to split Eneru in half, so both he and Viper ended up as barbecue. Viper had some Sea Stone to knock Eneru out for a sec, but he then just jump-started his own heart. Before the time skip, going up against Logia users was pretty much a dead end.
だから人は地に顔をうずめ、神に慈悲を請うのだ。アイス、H。
And boom! There's our next Logia user. Right after the Stroids beat Foxy, who was more comedy than a serious opponent, they had to face off against a Navy Admiral, who easily took on all members of the Stroids at once and left them with no chance, frozen solid. The monster trio was more or less defeated without even having to properly attack them. And once again it hits them, the crew lacks Haki. Or Sea Stone. Why haven't they ever tried to get their hands on some? After all this wild stuff they have gone through, especially post-Wano, you would think Usopp or Frankie would be all over that. They are the crew's brainiacs and gadget guys, so if they can't rock Haki, some Sea Stone should be the bare minimum.
やめろ！この時に！今、一味の瀬戸際だ。
速やかに屋敷を出ることだ。もちろん
それができればの話だな。
So they already got wrecked by Mr. Iceman, and so hustled to get stronger. And still they get smacked in the next arc. This time the situation is really tough, and although Luffy is actually in worse shape, after all he gets pierced just like Ace later does, Zoro also comes up short. The situation was absolute chaos. Nami and Chopper, useless as... yeah, you get me. So it was an inferior 2 versus 4, and then against a crew that was not only perfectly coordinated, but also had some strong new moves up their sleeves. CP9 just boots them far, far away out of there. Too bad, because they actually had the potential to win this. Luffy's up against Rob Lucci. Zoro's got Kaku, who ain't even got a devil fruit. Robin and or Nami handles Khalifa, and Nami and or Chopper take on Blueno. It would have probably even been easier than what they ended up facing. In the end, Luffy and Zoro are outnumbered, surprised by new techniques, and Rob Lucci feels like he's Tsubasa or something, sending Zoro flying with a topspin.
なんだその姿は。なんなんだよ。
俺は守屋様のしもべ、オーズだ。
Just when you think that the next saga will give you a break and you will not get a loss, you have to take another one to drop the boss move of all time. Zoro kills it again, taking on the saga's strongest swordsman, the legendary Ryuma. It was a tough fight, but Zoro came out on top and got Shusui as his new third sword as a reward. Up to this point, things in the saga spin more or less smoothly. Then Oars gets pumped with Luffy's shadow and it's game on. No Logia powers, no outnumbering or unknown techniques. Just straight up muscle meeting Luffy's stretchiness. At first, they're keeping Oars on a leash, and it's actually looking good for a win. Zoro even managed to knock off one of his teeth, a taste of what he would do later in Wano, when he took off a horn of the skull on Onigashima. They are keeping up with his raw power and size just fine. But when Moria brings in his brain game and stretching Oars out, playtime is over. They land a few more hits, but in the end, they had to face defeat.
てめえの中身がルフィの影なら。てめえの仲間の底力見くびっちゃいかんだろう。ご指名は俺だ。聞こえなかったのか。
Then comes Luffy to take on the big baby, seeking collective revenge. Moria gets knocked out as well. And then another one of those warlords drop in, who's just too much to handle. Luffy's unconscious. Everyone else is gassed out, but still has to keep fighting. Against an opponent who can attack from distance, who can teleport and go toe to toe with Zoro. But their duel isn't over after the Ursus shock. Zoro lands a surprise attack, which doesn't really do much because Kuma is just too tough. As a walking tank. To save his captain, Zoro has only one option. Offer himself as a captive. Sanji tries to step in for Zoro, but gets shut down with a quick sword hit. And then comes the unforgettable moment. Kuma gives him the choice. Take Luffy's pain and suffering, and I will back off. Zoro doesn't hesitate a bit and takes it upon himself to drop the most insane anime moment ever.
何もなかった。 New saga! Same old desperate battle against Terminators, and of course another Logia user, who's of course another Admiral. While Kizaru warms up with the other supernovaes, the Straw Hats, with the still highly damaged Zoro, are busy trying to find the off switch for PX4. And just when they finally made it, another Terminator and Sentomaru showed up. Way too much action all at once, so they decide to split and regroup in 3 days. Except here comes another damn Admiral! Zoro, who can barely stand and ain't even over his Wilderbug injuries, and who's even more wrecked after the fight against PX4, gets the honor of facing off Kizaru first. A guy who could take on all the Straw Hats at once if Rayleigh and later Kuma didn't come to the rescue. All that grind after getting beaten by Kuzan, and still a single Admiral is more than enough to completely crush the Straw Hats.
海賊狩りのゾロ、そこそこやれる剣士だと聞いてたんだけどね。俺だ、手始めに3人片付けた。
So far, it's always been clear why Zoro and the crew have taken a beating. Either Zoro was already weakened, dropping like a Digimon with no Wi-Fi, or the opponents were just mad OP. Trying to win against dudes like Kizaru or Kuzan pre-time skip is tougher than beating L in Guess Who. But here, man, the fucking Yeti brothers. Okay, you can't really call it a fight. Zoro, along with Sanji in Nami's body, probably still the best day of his life. And Brook got all hyped for an adventure when they spotted some giant footprints in the snow at Punk Hazard. But in the end, there was nothing. The three wannabe detectives walked right into a trap. They got hit with some Cyclone B, and just as they were about to die, Zoro cuts the ground, saving their asses while the others were snoozing. After a quick power nap, they are all good to go. So, a loss? Maybe? But why is Brook even passing out? The dude's got no nose, no lungs, no nothing to even process the poison. What's next? Brook dies if he writes his name in the death note, because he's already dead. Yo-ho-ho-ho-ho!
F の16巻崖の下に死体が転がってるはずだ。
このガキ。
Okay guys, Roof, peace. A 5 vs 2 showdown, and yet it felt completely helpless. After all, the two opponents were none other than the two emperors, Big Mom and Kaido. A fight that will go down in history. Luffy's entrance was huge, but then Zoro's the one who steals the spotlight. He slices through Prometheus and Kaido's laser like it's nothing. Then he pulls off something nobody's done in ages. Gets Kaido to dodge because the attack was too dangerous. As a result, Onigashima lost a horn and Big Mom got mad respect for Zoro. Next, it was Luffy's turn to burn some energy before Zoro has to carry his ass. Then came the combo attack from Big Mom and Kaido, who thought that would finish off some of the fight. But Zoro blocks it all by himself, even though he practically broke his entire body in the process. But even with that shattered body, one that had Law wondering how he was even standing, he was still able to keep Prometheus busy. And he was the first to actually inflict real damage on Kaido, which seriously impressed him. Sure, after another smack from Kaido's giant club, Zoro was done. But let's be real, who else can say they've blocked a team-up attack from two emperors? Zoro could, but it wrecked him so bad he couldn't continue fighting the emperors for long. At least until he got juiced up with some roids. So those were all of Zoro's defeats. And as you can see, he kept his promise to Luffy. You are probably thinking that he broke his promise because he lost to others after Mihawk, but none of those were sword fights. He won all his sword fights at the end of the day. So what's Zoro's actual promise to Luffy? Never to lose again? Well, kinda, but not exactly. More like he wants to be the greatest swordsman. And to be that, he simply can't afford to lose in sword fights anymore. After all, he made that promise right after a sword fight. And that's it for this video. Who's your favorite character in One Piece? Write it down in the comments. We'll see us next time, so take care, my friends.